It sounds like we're getting closer to a decision on where Kyle Busch is going to drive, and Rich Choice Racing is currently the favorite for that. And the 2023 schedule is currently being held up by the All-Star race, and a couple of races could lose dates heading into 2023. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We've got a ton of NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're going to go start our paint schemes and sponsorship news first. Let's jump those really quickly. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Zane Smith's 2022 Hamsters USA scheme. They're going to be seen this weekend in the Truck Series race at Kansas. Pretty cool to see the Hamsters USA is jumping on. I think the truck looks absolutely awesome and great. I love the yellow on it. I think it looks awesome, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at Kansas. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Todd Gilliland's 2022 Sit Guard scheme. They're going to be seen this weekend at Kansas. Pretty good to see his Sit Guard is jumping up to sponsor Todd Gilliland. I think they sponsored the 38 car in the past in the Cup Series, so great to see they're continuing their partnership with Front Row Motorsports. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Eric Umbrell's 2022 Farmland scheme. They're going to be seen this weekend at Kansas. Honestly, I think this paint scheme looks really good. I like the light green and the light blue on it. Everything kind of mismatches really well, and it looks great in my opinion. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Grant Enfinger's 2022 Allegiance scheme. They're going to be seen this weekend at Kansas. Really excited to see Allegiance as partnering up with Grant Enfinger. Of course, the Maury Gallagher is basically the chairman and CEO of Allegiance. So really great to see that they're partnering up with Grant Enfinger, and the paint in the truck looks great in my opinion. And the final paint scheme we're taking a look at is Corey LaJoie's 2022 Circle B Diecast Neosho Wildcat scheme. They're going to be seen this weekend at Kansas. Honestly, I think this looks really cool. Looks very different to other Circle B diecast schemes that we've seen in the past, but I think it's really exciting, and I'm definitely looking forward to see it on the racetrack this weekend at Kansas. I think it looks really good, to be honest with you. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Erik Jones once again. Now, every single week after every Cup race, Joseph Strictly finds some facts and some interesting facts to report, and he reported on this Monday morning that Erik Jones is the second youngest multi-time winner at the Southern 500. The youngest is Jeff Gordon. Of course, Erik Jones picked up his third career NASCAR Cup Series victory, and he also did that in getting his second Southern 500 victory. This track has been a really strong track for Erik Jones throughout his career, and it's so interesting to see that he's the youngest winner of two Southern 500s. I think Erik Jones is going to continue, though, to win a lot more races throughout his career, and I think this is definitely really exciting for sure that he continues to win, and really good to see that. It's pretty exciting, and that's really cool that he basically is the second youngest winner in the track's history for multi-time winners. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Josh Reaume. As Josh Reaume is going to drive the 33 for Ram Brothers Racing this weekend at Kansas. This will be Josh Reaume's, I think, third or fourth start of the 2022 Camping World Truck Series season, by the way. Not sure Josh is going to do. The Ram Brother trucks have really not done really fast for us. He's one of the owners of the Ram Brothers Racing organization. Wish him the best of luck. Hope he's able to make the field and race in the truck race this weekend at Kansas. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Tyler Hill. As Tyler Hill is going to drive the 5 for Hill Motorsports this weekend at Kansas. This will be Tyler Hill's fourth attempt to make the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series field this weekend. Tyler Hill, I think, has got a really good shot to make the field. The Hill Motorsports trucks tend to be really decent and really good on pace. The 5 truck's not as good as the 56 still, but I think Tyler Hill, if he's able to make the field, I think he'll have a really strong run in that truck. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Akinori Ogata. As Akinori Ogata is going to drive the 13 for MBM Motorsports this weekend at Kansas. I believe this will be Akinori's second or third start with MBM Motorsports. I think he made his first or second start of the year at Michigan a couple weeks ago, and now he's back in the 13 car this weekend. Honestly, it's cool to see Akinori Ogata's winning a lot of late model race at Hickory. He's been really good over there. Hopefully, he's able to have a good run in his 13 car. He has to basically make the show. He doesn't have a lot of owner's points. Hopefully, he's able to get it done, and hopefully, he will have a really good run in that car this weekend at Kansas. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Howie DeSavino III. As Howie DeSavino III is going to drive the 44 for Alpha Prime Racing this weekend at Kansas. This will be Howie DeSavino's first start, and I think a little bit he's raced a couple times for Alpha Prime Racing this season, but now he's getting another opportunity to drive the 44 car. Honestly, I'm wishing Howie the best of luck in that car. I think he's got a really good shot to make the show. The Alpha Prime team, I think, has been getting a little bit faster as the year has progressed. Honestly, I think a really good run would be like a top 30 for the team because they really need a lot of owners' points. Hopefully, Howie can do that and get the team a good run this weekend at Kansas. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Mason Maggio. As Mason Maggio is going to drive the 43 for the Ram Brothers Racing Organization this weekend at Kansas. This is Mason Maggio's third or fourth attempt to make a race this year. He's already made one start, I believe, earlier this year at Worldwide Technology, but he did not make the Camping World Truck Series race at IRP earlier this year. Of course, with Mason Maggio only being 17 or 18 years old, it's not a shock he has not made a lot of starts yet. Mason, though, is a very talented driver, and I think that experience is really going to come in hand. I think Mason will do really good in the Truck Series this weekend at Kansas. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Brandon Brown. As Brandon Brown is going to drive a 0-2 for our Motorsports this weekend at Kansas. This is really, really exciting to see, considering Brandon Brown has not been in really the best equipment. I think this has to probably be the best car that he's been able to participate in. Because our Motorsports is a really, really solid team when you put the right people in their organization. And I think Brandon Brown will not only outperform his own car, but I think Brandon Brown is going to have a really strong run in the 0-2 car this weekend for our Motorsports. I expect a great run from him this weekend. I think Brandon Brown will have a really good chance at potentially even a top 5 or top 10. Yes, there's a high expectations, but I think he'll be the best performing our Motorsports car this weekend at Kansas. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Bailey Currey. As Bailey Currey is going to drive the 44 for Nice Motorsports this weekend at Kansas. This is such a really cool and great opportunity. Of course, Bailey Currey has driven for Nice Motorsports in multiple races over the years. He's had some really solid and really great runs with the Nice Motorsports organization over the years. I think Bailey Currey will make that 44 truck run extremely well, probably the bestest run all year, considering the other drivers, Chad Chastain and Chris Wright being them, really have struggled in this truck. But I think Bailey Currey, if there's anyone who can do a really good job and can really do well in underfunded equipment, it's Bailey Currey. So I think Bailey Currey is going to have a really strong run in that truck, and I think he gets a great finishes this weekend at Kansas. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next stories of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Brett Moffitt. As Brett Moffitt is going to be doing double duty this weekend in the Truck Series and the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Brett Moffitt is going to drive the 22 for AM Racing in the Truck Series this weekend at Kansas. I expect Brett Moffitt to have a really strong and a really great run in that truck this weekend. When Brett Moffitt drove that truck in Knoxville, he was sitting for a top 5 and even a top 10 before some issues happened. So I think Brett Moffitt will have a really strong run. On top of that, Brett Moffitt is going to drive a 0-7 for SS Greenlight Racing in the Xfinity Series at Kansas as well. Brett Moffitt in the Xfinity Series, I expect him to do really good in that car when you get a really good driver behind the wheel. And this is no disrespect to Joe Graf Jr., but I don't think Joe Graf Jr. is a fantastic driver. I think Brett Moffitt's going to get the best out of that equipment this weekend, and I think he'll do extremely well. I expect a good run from Brett Moffitt in both races, and I think Brett Moffitt's going to have some really strong runs in both races this weekend at Kansas. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Ryan Vargas. As Ryan Vargas revealed on social media yesterday that he will not be racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at Bristol Motor Speedway. The reason being is because of the lack of sponsorship and the lack of funding. Ryan Vargas has ran a majority of the season so far for JD Motorsports and was supposed to run full-time for JD Motorsports this season. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, he doesn't have a lot of funding and a lot of sponsorship. And the big reason is because of the fact that basically he doesn't bring a lot of sponsorship and funding. He doesn't have that TikTok sponsorship anymore to really help him out. It's disappointing to see that Ryan Vargas is not racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, but I would expect that someone like Ty, basically maybe Brandon Brown somehow drives a car, maybe Ty Dillon. Who knows at this point, but it's really disappointing, but it is what it is, and hopefully Ryan Vargas will be back behind the wheel for the rest of the races this season. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the R&D Center. Usually every single week, we usually see cars being brought back to the R&D Center. As Bob Pockers reported, both Corey LaJoie and Cole Custer's cars have basically been sent to the R&D Center, and there were no issues in the R&D Center for Corey LaJoie and Cole Custer. Usually, nothing really happens in the R&D Center. You're going to get it from time to time where you'll get penalties. We've seen a couple teams like Brad Gzowski and Michael McDowell's teams get penalized for being in the R&D Center. But as of usual, there were no major penalties that came out from the R&D Center. I'm not shocked and not surprised that nothing came out, but things could change and you never know. But there's no issues came out from the R&D Center, and it's good that we had no problems really in the R&D Center when it came to the cars. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to go ahead and talk about the NASCAR Awards Show. It was announced yesterday that the NASCAR Awards Show is going to be taking place in Nashville once again. It'll be taking place on December 1st. I believe that's going to be on a Thursday or Friday, and it will be taking place on December the 1st. It's unclear what else is going to be happening downtown or something going to be going on, I believe, on November 30th, the night before. Probably the burnouts on Broadway again like they've done in the past, but they announced that we're going to be seeing the award show taking place on December 1st. It's good to see the award show is basically back. I think they brought that back last year, if I'm not mistaken, so it's good to see they're bringing it back once again, and I think it really is great to see. I wonder if they'll basically somehow honor some Hall of Fame drivers. Who knows at this particular point, but I think it's phenomenal they're bringing it back, the Voice of the Award Show. That's one thing I definitely on my bucket list to go to, is basically trying to go out to that award show. I think I'd love to be at that award show for sure. So hopefully I maybe one year can make it out to the award show in Nashville. And yeah, good to see that they're bringing the award show back. So I think it's really exciting, to be honest with you. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Nick DeVries. As it was announced yesterday that Nick DeVries is going to be driving one of Aston Martin's AMR 22 cars, and will get some experience in FP1 at Monza this weekend. Nick DeVries, of course, who is a two-time FE Formula E champion. I believe he drove for Mercedes or McLaren. I can't remember exactly which organization, but he's getting some Formula One experience, because it could happen in the long term that Nick DeVries could be coming to Formula One in the next couple years. I think it makes a lot of sense for him to get that experience and get some little bit of practice for potentially in the future getting into Formula One. So good to see he's getting some experience. I think it makes sense, and I think it's required for every driver in every program, whether it's Formula E or Formula One. You have to let your young drivers in development pipelines, you have to let them have an opportunity to test. So it's really good to see that he's getting some experience, and I think that experience could come in handy for him long term. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to go ahead and talk about Toyota. Now, this is something that I forgot to talk about basically after the Cup Series race and talk about on Monday. But Dustin Law reported on Sunday evening that Kyle Busch's and Mark Truex Jr.'s engines are going to be being sent back to the TRD complex for further investigation, and we probably will know something in regards to that in the coming days and weeks. The reason being is because there were a couple issues in the Cup Series race. First, Mark Truex Jr., I think, had something basically blow up in his car. I think he had some pump belt issues and basically took his car off the track after leading. Then with around 23 to 24 laps to go, we saw Kyle Busch's engine basically just blow up from the race lead. Now, Mark Truex Jr., he was pretty upset, but Kyle Busch probably was upset on the inside, but wasn't angry. It's good to see that Toyota's trying to figure out what the problems are. It probably was just some fluke deals. I think maybe some debris got in the car perhaps that maybe could have caught the engine on fire, basically caught the engine to basically have issues. It's really disappointing for sure, but I love that they're trying to be proactive to fix these problems with Toyota, because I think it makes a lot of sense to go and fix those problems. And I'm definitely happy to see that they've gone ahead and basically are being proactive to try to fix the problems, and hopefully whatever they're able to find, they can fix those problems. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Richard Petty. Now, on Monday afternoon, Richard Petty was on SiriusXM NASCAR radio, and he talked about the merger with GMS, his organization, Richard Petty Motorsports, with GMS Racing, and talk about how the merger with GMS has really helped their organization, and them coming in has not only helped their sponsorship issues, but has really helped their performance as well. You look at Petty GMS Racing or Petty GMS Motorsports this year. Generally, you look at the 42 car, it's not really a fast organization. It gets occasional top 10 or top 5 from time to time, but doesn't run as fast. But when you look at the 43 car that Erik Jones is running, I think it's proof that basically the car is a lot better than what it's really been showing over the years. And Erik Jones, I think, is one of the most underrated drivers in the NASCAR Cup Series. Did he get kind of a fluke win after Kyle Busch's engine let go? Yes, but he was up in the right position at the right time. And if you're going to win a championship, you're going to have to be in the right position and the right time. And also, Erik Jones has been consistently a top 15 driver a majority of the season. for a majority of the year. He's been around top 15 in the regular season standings. And I think as time goes on, I think they recently just got a laser Hawkeye system in their garage. And I think that's why their program is all of a sudden been starting to pick up the pace. And they were a little bit falling off a little bit in the middle of the year, but they're really been coming back. And I think next year, especially with the addition of Noah Gragson coming onto the team, I think their team's going to flourish. Look how well Noah Gragson's been doing this year. Gragson scored 4 wins in the Xfinity Series with Junior Motorsports. And I know he hasn't had a great Cup resume so far, but I think that he will do much better in the 42 car than he's done in the College Racing organization. So I think the change has been not only really, really exciting, but I think it's been also really great for the team as well. And good to see that Richard Petty's been really happy with the merger as well. So I think that's what is most important. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the 2023 NHRA schedule. This is the second series that basically now has revealed their schedule. IMSA's already revealed theirs, and now we got the 2023 NHRA schedule revealed. First, they'll be going to Gainesville on March 9th to 12th, followed by Wild Horse in Arizona on March 24th through 26th. Pomona, which had been rumored maybe not have dates at all this year, or maybe this year being his last year, basically will be taking place from March 30th to April 2nd. Followed by Las Vegas on April 14th through 16th. After that, you'll have ZMAX Dragway on April 28th through 30th. Then we'll be going back to Route 66 Speedway, which is around the Chicagoland area. So Chicagoland's starting to get the racing back finally. So we're going back to Route 66 for the first time since 2019 on May 19th through 21st. Then they'll be going to New England on June 2nd through 4th, followed by Bristol on June 9th through 11th. After that, they'll be going to Summit Raceway on June 22nd to 25th, followed by Bandimere on July 14th to 16th. After that, they'll be going to Pacific on July 21st through 23rd. Then they'll be going to Sonoma on July 28th through 30th. After that, they'll be going to Heartland Motorsports Park on August 11th through 13th. They'll be going to Brainerd Speedway on August 17th through 20th. After that, they go to Indianapolis Raceway Park on August 30th through September 4th, followed by Maple Grove Speedway on September 14th through 17th. After that, they're making a return stop on September 22nd to 24th to ZMAX Dragway in Charlotte. And then they'll be going to Worldwide Technology Raceway for the Midway Classic on September 29th through October 1st. After that, a couple weeks later, they'll go to Texas on October 12th through 15th. And then they'll go back to Las Vegas on October 26th through 29th. And then the final race of the year will take place on November 9th to 12th in Sonoma, California to end the season. Overall, the most notable changes, basically there's been some rumblings about Pomona Speedway, that track might close. Good to see that they're back for next year and also returning to Chicagoland. There's a lot of talk about the future of Chicagoland coming back in the next 2 years. I think it's with Julie Guys kind of being part of that project with the Chicago Street Course project. She probably has a lot to do with this decision to bring this series back. And it's amazing to see NHRA is coming back to the racetrack like Route 66, such a legendary track. And very excited to see. I think the schedule is really good. You got a lot of diversity. You got a lot of different areas you're going to and a lot of different locations as well. So I think that's not only exciting, but I think it's generally really awesome for the sport and very happy to see that that is the NHRA schedule. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Christopher Bell and Daniel Suarez. Now, this is something I also forgot to talk about on Sunday, but in the NASCAR Cup Series race, Daniel Suarez was not very happy with Christopher Bell after some contact in the late stages of stage number 2. Basically, I think they're rallying around from 4th to 7th position. You had Christopher Bell, Joey Logano, and I believe also William Byron were all battling for really hard for position. And there was some contact between multiple drivers, and I believe Daniel Suarez got put into the outside wall. Daniel Suarez basically was not very happy, and after the race, he says that he will get Christopher Bell back eventually. He said he was not very happy, and he says that he will get Christopher Bell back eventually. Now, look at the situation in regards to this. When I look at the contact, I think it's just really, really hard racing. And we've seen this from time to time where drivers say that they're going to pay somebody back, and then they really never end up doing it. Look at other drivers like Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, who've been really mad at Ross Chastain. They haven't done anything to Ross Chastain yet. But then again, we've also seen Christopher Bell get involved in wrecks with Daniel Suarez's teammate, Ross Chastain. And Daniel Suarez, of course, being a teammate of Ross Chastain. He's probably seen that from Christopher Bell, what has happened, and basically taken him out of contention and other points throughout the year as well, with what's happened there. And honestly, I'm not sure if we're going to see anything else there. To me, when I look back at the contact, I think it's just really hard racing, going for a position. And basically, they're basically going out there trying to race really, really hard. They not only get as many points as possible, but trying to get a potential win for their teams as well. Honestly, though, I think it makes a lot of sense. I understand Daniel Suarez's frustration, believe me, because Daniel Suarez basically, he kind of got a Sweeney penalty, kind of took him out of contention. And Suarez says, probably if payback comes, it may come at Kansas, it may come at Bristol, which I think Bristol probably will be the most likely place for a lot of payback to happen. Looking at Denny Hamlin, maybe payback Ross Chastain again. Maybe looking at some Joe Gibbs drivers, be frustrated with Ross Chastain and getting into him. That being said, though, I think it's just a racing incident, and honestly, I did not expect much to come from that, in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the fire situation in NASCAR. Now, we already talked about Kevin Harvick was extremely critical with NASCAR. Kevin Harvick, after the NASCAR Cup Series race, after he got taken out due to a rocker panel basically catching on fire in his car and basically the dash catching on fire, Kevin Harvick basically ripped one of the NASCAR and said that NASCAR needs to fix these issues, and they said that NASCAR really doesn't care about them. Well, yesterday, Scott Miller went on SiriusXM NASCAR radio and says that it's unacceptable that for the cars to be catching on fire. And NASCAR says they're working on solutions. Well, last night, NASCAR made some executive changes to the teams, and I think they're adding some sort of polyamber bar, some sort of bar that's basically going to protect the drivers and protect the exhaust so these cars do not catch on fire. This, in my opinion, is a really good thing that NASCAR is doing, that they are already basically being proactive in this situation. And this is a situation that really has only come up as of recently. We've had 6-7 cars basically catch on fire as of recently. We first saw this with Chris Busch or Joe Logano at the Indy Road Course. Both those cars caught on fire. First being that Chris Buescher's car got pushed in by Bubba Wallace, and basically there was contact, and then his car caught on fire, but he could not get out of the car. And that's another thing. The drivers basically had to say, and he basically sat through those flames and sat through those toxic fumes, because if you get out of the car, your race is over. So he has to sit through those, even if the car catches on fire, out of his control. And then, of course, Joe Logano, his car caught on fire, but then NASCAR the next week added a new exhaust. But then the next week, 2 weeks later in Michigan, we see Cole Custer's car catch on fire, and he gets out of the car. Then the next week, we see J.J. Elliott and Kevin Harvick's car catch on fire. So it could be just a Ford issue. But from what a lot of people are saying, that this is something that may be happening with all the teams. And as much as I've criticized NASCAR in the past and said they need to fix these changes now, this is one of the major things that have been causing problems. The next thing that NASCAR needs to work on is safety. But I think NASCAR being proactive as quick as they already are being to get this situation fixed, I think that's a major thumbs up for NASCAR. Yes, this issue that probably should have been resolved before the season began. But this is a good thing that basically NASCAR saw these issues like, you know what? We're going to go ahead and fix this problem and get the situation taken care of as quickly as possible, because I think it's really important that they do go ahead and fix these problems that are basically going on with this car. Because like I said here, you have a situation where these cars are basically going ahead and catching on fire. And you can't afford that because these teams are spending millions of dollars. You can't have cars basically catching on fire and on basically unexpectedly. Like, for instance, Kevin Harvick just caught on fire accidentally because you had rubber buildup. And I know that Rodney Childers and Kevin Harvick were still really mad about it on social media yesterday. They were still going off on it 2 days after the incident happened. That being said, though, I'm glad to see NASCAR is being proactive with the situation to get this issue resolved. And it's good they basically said that we're going to have this all sent out to the teams today, because they're sending out to the teams currently as we speak right now. And I think that it's a major positive to me that NASCAR has already gone ahead and decided to go right ahead and make these solutions kind of happen. So I think that's a major positive. I'm happy to see NASCAR is getting proactive with this as quickly as possible, in my opinion. And now we're going to jump on to the first of 2 major stories in today's episode, as we're going to talk about the 2023 NASCAR schedule. Now, the big thing to know about the 2023 NASCAR schedule, it was already supposed to be released by this point. There's a lot of conversation. The schedule was going to be released in the middle of August. Unfortunately, we are way past the deadline in regards to the release of the 2023 schedule. They've been talking maybe they're going to be working to release it this week. But we still do not have a release date on the 2023 schedule. And it sounds like there's 2 major reasons potentially why the 2023 schedule has not been released yet. They basically reported by Couch Razor Shops, basically is a group that Brett Griffin and Freddie Kraft basically own on Twitter, the account that they basically run. The reason this 2023 schedule has not been released at this time is because of 2 reasons. The first one, and many people in the industry have basically speculate, is the All-Star race is basically holding up the release of the schedule announcement. The other thing they're talking about is there's a lot of talk that Richmond and Kansas could end up losing dates heading into 2023. Let's begin with the 2023 All-Star race, because one thing to know about the 2023 All-Star race, there was basically a report that basically was brought up by Adam Stern about 2 or 3 months ago, I believe during the Nashville weekend, that Fox does not want the All-Star race at Texas Motor Speedway anymore. And that, I think, is why the schedule has not been released at the time, is because of that. They don't want to have it Texas anymore because of how bad the race was at Texas, and I think Fox wants to put on a really good show. I think there's a lot of theories around where potentially the All-Star race could be. They could bring it back to Charlotte, perhaps. They could be bringing it to like a short track, basically an SMI track that basically is owned by SMI, and that could be where they could potentially be having the All-Star race next year. Or maybe, just maybe they're trying to get it at North Wilkesboro, maybe on dirt, but again, they're not supposed to be racing at North Wilkesboro in 2023, and they could be racing in 2024. Let's get to that other part of that rumor, the Kansas and the Richmond rumors. So let's begin with the Kansas rumors, because there have been a wild rumor, I think back from Colton Cranmore, basically put out about Chicago maybe getting a date and Kansas only having one date next year, being like a midsummer night race. But then Julie Guys came out and said about a week or two ago that right now the plan for Chicago is they're not going to go back until the deal with the Chicago Street Course is more than likely done. So Chicago is probably off the table. It could also be possible that Kansas could have one day, and maybe it's going to end up going to track like, let's say, Iowa Speedway. Iowa Speedway put on a really awesome show for IndyCar, brought a lot of fans in, and that could be where potentially they could be bringing back maybe Kansas losing its date and going to Iowa. And then you think about Richmond. Richmond has had horrendous attendance. Let's be for real. I think Richmond should only have one day. In fact, I think a majority of tracks outside 4 or 5 of them should have only one date because you get more schedule diversity. So I think it makes sense if Richmond or Kansas would end up losing a date. But it's so interesting to me that right now they're the two rumored, Kansas and Richmond. They've been the two of the biggest rumored for a while, and the Alex Bowman effect seems like it could be affecting Richmond's future since he has one at Richmond Raceway. We're going to have to wait and see what happens in regards to the future of that, but that sounds like is what's right now holding up the release of the 2023 schedule. And now we're going to jump on to the final major story of today's episode as we're talking about Kyle Busch once again. It seems like every other day we've got some new reports coming out around Kyle Busch and where he potentially could be ending up in 2023. And the big reason being is because Kyle Busch right now does not have a sponsor for 2023. It does not have a contract signed. Let's go back to a little bit of a backstory. M&M's is leaving at the conclusion of the 2022 season. And Joe Gibbs Racing did have a sponsor for Kyle Busch, but about a month or two ago, it was reported from multiple sources that basically Oracle dropped their, which was going to be the sponsor, was going to sponsor Kyle Busch. They kind of dropped it. And then about a month ago, it was reported that Joe Gibbs Racing had stopped talking to Kyle Busch. And it seems like from inside sources and from people in the industry, that it sounds like Kyle Busch is likely going to be out of Joe Gibbs Racing at the conclusion of the 2022 season and going to another organization. Then we've had rumblings of other teams like Stuart Haas Racing, Richard Childress Racing, 2311 Racing, and Calling brought up in the conversations. Now, according to Adam Stern yesterday, there was a report that came out from basically that Richard Childress Racing is one of the favorites to land Kyle Busch. But RCR president Tori Galita said he has no comment at Darlington. Adam Stern also mentions that 2311 Racing could also still be potentially in the conversations. Now, last night on the Door Bumper Clear Pockets that Brett Griffin was not featured on, Tyler Reddick was featured on, basically Freddie Crafton speculated that a decision is coming really, really soon, and that it's basically a two-team horse race right now to basically figure out where he's going to go. Now, I think there are more teams that maybe could still be available for Kyle Busch, but I think it's down to 3 organizations at the moment. Here are the 3 teams that I think are in the running. Colleague Racing, Richard Childress Racing, and 2311 Racing. Those are the 3 teams right now that are still in the running for Kyle Busch heading into 2023. Let's first talk about 2311 Racing and that as a possible option. 2311 Racing right now, they are still in the Toyota pipeline. And Kyle Busch Motorsports has got a really big association with Toyota currently at the moment. Also, Michael Jordan is worth a lot of money. But here's where another thing possibly could come up if Kyle Busch maybe somehow does go there. Think about this. Kurt Busch is still not clear if he's even going to be back next year, and Kurt Busch is not even returning right now as of now. There's a good chance that Kurt could be out for the rest of the season. But there's also a possibility that Kurt Busch maybe just comes back in 2023. That is another possible option. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Steve Valletta said last week, I think Austin Konetsky from Sportsnet reported this, that basically Steve Valletta said they're not looking right now to get a third charter. So the only way I think Kyle Busch could really land her is if they do get a third charter, unless they purchase a charter from Spire. That could be a potential option. And then you go to the other two Chevy teams, because it sounds like Joe Gibbs Racing is completely off the table, and Ty Gibbs is probably going to end up going there next year. It's probably 95% likely that Ty Gibbs is probably going to be ending up driving the 18 car next year, and Kyle Busch going to another organization. Then you go to the other two Chevy organizations. You have Rich Jones Racing and Kaulig Racing. Let's begin with Kaulig Racing. Kaulig Racing has been one of the clear frontrunners and the clear front-running teams for Kyle Busch for the last few weeks. And the big reason being is because there's a couple things. Number one, Kaulig Racing has a big announcement coming on October the 5th. And also, I believe Chris Rice, who's the president of Kaulig Racing, has said that they want a truck series organization. They would like to expand to a truck series organization next year. Who's got a truck series organization? Kyle Busch. Plus, Kyle Busch would be able to basically go ahead and bring a lot of expertise to the team and really help the team grow in their Cup Series programs. He brings that veteran experience and that veteran presence as well. So that could be a possible option as well. And I think Kaulig Racing will be part of this announcement regardless of where Kyle Busch goes in some way. But now we get to where I think he's going to end up going next year, and where a lot of people are starting to kind of shift their position. I know that Dale Jr. mentions Kaulig Racing is still where he's likely going to end up going. But I think Kyle Busch is going to Richard Childress Racing, and here is why. Rich Childress Racing, there's a couple things that could end up happening for Kyle Busch to go to Rich Childress Racing. Number one, Rich Childress Racing has had conversations that they could, if they wanted to, they are talking maybe that they might go ahead and purchase another charter. Where would they get that charter from? You think about Rickware Racing. Rickware Racing currently has two charters, but they could sell one of their charters to basically hand over to Richard Childress Racing. But then you think about Spire Motorsports. Spire Motorsports, they currently have two charters at the moment as we speak right now. And basically Spire Motorsports is a Chevy-based organization. And let's be honest, the 77 car has not been performing to the same level as the 17 really has those of the year. So I think that they could purchase a charter from a team like Spire Motorsports. I know people mention Live Fast Motorsports. I know BJ really has a good friendship, I think, with Richard. But BJ's not selling the team, and they're not selling their charter. So that's not going to end up happening. And then you think about Tyler Reddick. Now, we have been hearing some reports and indications that Richard basically is still not very happy with Tyler Reddick, despite having basically getting the team 2 wins this year, the first time a driver has won multiple races at the organization since Kevin Hart back in 2013. But we know that Tyler Reddick, regardless, is going to end up at 2311 Racing heading into 2024. But there's a lot of talk that they could already oust that extension that they have for one more year, and they could bring Tyler Reddick out, put Tyler Reddick out of the organization, and bring Kyle Busch in to the organization as well. So I think that could also be a possible option. So I think Kyle Busch is going to Richard Childress regardless. And a lot of people think that this is really a bad move. I completely disagree. Has Austin Dillon done great with the team? No, but I think the team has actually been decent this year. Reddick and both Dillon and Reddick have won races this year. Yes, Austin Dillon was horrendous at Darlington. He was absolutely, really should not even been in the playoffs. But Dillon's been top 20 points in majority of this year. And Tyler Reddick is an outside championship threat. He's got 2 wins this year, like I mentioned already. And Reddick is probably going to likely have a shot at making the championship 4 with how unpredictable his championship is. He can somehow win the championship for all we know and get RCR their first championship since, I think, 1994. It's been almost 30 years since the last time Richard's team has won a championship. So that's very possible right there. And Kyle Busch would probably get the best out of equipment right there for Richard Childress Racing. Kyle Busch can really make a team much stronger. Look at what Kyle Busch did for the 18 car. When Kyle Busch went to the 18 car, when that team started, they struggled for the last few years before Kyle Busch got there. And then Kyle Busch goes there. Now it's the team become really great once again. But then you have to kind of tie in Kaulig Racing. Kaulig Racing, they have an association with Richard Childress Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and the Cup Series as well. I think you're going to hear this. KBM. I think it's still going to be KBM. But I think Kaulig Racing is going to purchase an ownership stake in the Truck Series program, and they're going to be Kaulig Busch Motorsports in the Camping World Truck Series program. I think that's where Kaulig ties into this because I think they're going to be partnering with that. GMS is rumored they may shut their Truck Series program down at the end of this year. They might shut it down and sell their stuff off to Kyle Busch Motorsports, and then Kaulig could be part of the KBM team. But then a lot of you think, what about that Cup Series announcement? I'm starting to think more than likely what it could end up being, it could still end up being a Kyle Busch somehow it goes there. But I think what that announcement is going to be for Kaulig, I think it's going to be that they're going to re-sign Justin Haley. I just think with Justin Haley and the partnership that they have with Haley, I think that's what's going to happen. So I think at this point, my prediction is, and it keeps changing every single week, but I think Kyle Busch is going to Rich Choice Racing in 2023. So that is for today's NASCAR news and other motorsports news video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notification to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and subscribe to my Patreon as well. Link description below over that, and comment your thoughts on today's episode. Where do you think Kyle Busch is going to end up in 2023? Do you think he's going to end up at Richard Childress? Do you think he's going to end up at 2311? Let me know in the comments below. And what do you think is really holding up the 2023 schedule release? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel, I'm not entirely sure what's going to be coming out. I may have a special update video for you guys out on the channel. Friday, I might do a NASCAR news video, but I also might do something else on the channel. I may do a truck review as well Friday. I've got other content I think that's on the way that I think y'all are going to enjoy. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.